I've thought it over, Vanessa. We're done. There's no future for us. Greg's words hit me like a punch to the gut. We were sitting at the dinner table, the same place where we'd shared countless meals and made plans for the future. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. What? After 3 years, you're ending this now? I managed to ask, my voice trembling. He didn't even look up. I'm tired of the drama. Pack your stuff and leave. I need this place for someone else. The cold finality in his tone struck me dumb. I stared at him, waiting for a hint of regret or hesitation in his eyes, but there was none. The man I once thought I knew had turned into a stranger. We had met at a tech conference 3 years ago. Our connection was instantaneous. The chemistry was undeniable. Within months, I moved into his modern, high-rise apartment. We blended our lives, merging our routines and dreams, or at least, so I thought. Is there someone else? I couldn't help but ask. Greg finally looked up, his eyes hard and unyielding. That's none of your business. I felt my heart sink. It wasn't just the end. It was betrayal. I pushed back from the table and stood up, my hands shaking. I'll pack my stuff. Good, he said, already looking at his phone, dismissing me as casually as one would a waiter. I walked into his bedroom, blinking back tears. The room had stopped feeling like mine the moment Greg uttered those words. I grabbed my suitcase and began to pack, folding clothes numbly, my mind racing to catch up with the reality unfolding before me. Halfway through, I heard Greg on the phone. His voice was low, but the apartment was silent, magnifying the sound of every word. Finally, Jessica, we can be together. I've kicked her out. Jessica. The name echoed in my head. The pieces fell together. It wasn't just that he grew tired of me. He had someone waiting in the wings. I zipped up my suitcase. With as much dignity as I could muster, I walked to the living room. I'm leaving now. Greg glanced at me, not moving from his spot at the head of the table. Good luck, he said, his tone flat and disinterested. I stepped out into the hall, the door closing behind me with a resounding click, separating me from the past 3 years of my life. The air was cold, unwelcoming. I took a deep breath, fighting back the urge to collapse on the floor in tears. Dragging my suitcase behind me, I made my way to the elevator. I needed a plan, a place to go. As the elevator descended, I took out my phone and dialed the one person I could always count on. Megan, it's me. Can I stay with you for a while? Vanessa, are you okay? Megan's concerned voice was a balm, but it made the tears finally spill over. No, I'll explain when I get there. Of course, come over. I'm here for you. As I stepped out of the building and into the night, I was filled with a mix of heartbreak and determination. Greg and Jessica had taken something precious from me, but I would reclaim my life. Maybe even more. Tonight was the end of one chapter, but it was also the beginning of another, one where I would write my own story free from deceit and betrayal. I arrived at Megan's apartment late that night, exhausted and broken. She wrapped her arms around me the moment she opened the door. No words, just the comfort of a friend. You'll be okay here, she said softly, guiding me inside. Her apartment was warm and welcoming, cluttered with memories. Family photos and souvenirs from our college years. This place felt like a refuge. Thank you, Megan. She shook her head. No need to thank me. Let's get you settled. The next morning, I tried to focus on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my new job at a marketing firm, arriving early and leaving late, desperate for distraction. My boss, Linda, was kind and encouraging, and I wanted to make a good impression. During one of our team meetings, Linda smiled at me warmly. You're doing great, Vanessa. We're glad to have you on board. I appreciated the reassurance, but I could barely muster a smile. The pain from Greg's betrayal was raw and constant. It gnawed at me, even as I tried to bury it under piles of work. One evening, as I packed my things at the office, my phone buzzed. It was Greg's number. Dread gripped me as I answered. Hello? Vanessa? His voice was cold, almost mocking. You must be lonely now. How does it feel to be shoved aside? My grip tightened on the phone. Why are you calling me? I bet you're miserable, he continued, ignoring my question. Must be hard to start over, isn't it? Leave me alone, Greg. His laugh was low and bitter. You're not getting rid of me that easily. I hung up, feeling my hands shake. The walls of the office seemed to close in around me. I needed air. I needed to escape his poison. Back at Megan's, I tried to calm down. Megan noticed my distress immediately. What's wrong? She asked, concern etched on her face. Greg called, I said, my voice unsteady. He's trying to torment me. Megan's expression darkened. That bastard. He's not going to get away with this. We'll figure something out. As the days went by, Greg's calls continued, each one more invasive than the last. He knew details about my new job, where I went for lunch, the friends I was trying to reconnect with. He was relentless. One afternoon, while I was packing my things at the office, I overheard Greg's voice again. This time, he was on speakerphone in a heated discussion with another woman. "Can't you see? Vanessa was just in the way. She's gone now, so what's the problem?" "Just make sure she doesn't come back into our lives," the woman responded sharply. "It wasn't Jessica. It was someone else." My heart dropped to my stomach. I left the office feeling more determined than ever. This wasn't just about me. Greg wasn't going to get away with it. Returning to Megan's apartment, I told her everything. "He's not just harassing me, he's flaunting it." Her eyes blazed with anger. "Then we'll make him pay, Vanessa. He's crossed a line." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of hope. We were going to take him down. Not just for what he did to me, but for all the lives he tried to destroy. The harassment didn't stop. Every day brought new calls and messages from Greg. One evening, as I was settling down with a glass of wine at Megan's, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. "You think you can just move on, Vanessa?" Greg's voice was dripping with malice. "You're nothing without me." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "What do you want, Greg? Why are you doing this?" "I want you to feel exactly how you made me feel, worthless and replaceable," he replied, venom in his tone. "Leave me alone, Greg. This needs to stop." "You don't give the orders anymore," he sneered before hanging up. I stared at my phone, my heart pounding. It wasn't just about hurting me. Greg wanted to destroy me. That night, I confided in Megan again, her supportive presence helping to keep the panic at bay. "We need to find a way to make him stop," I said, my voice shaking. Megan nodded. "I'll start digging. There has to be something we can use against him. No one is perfect." A few days later, as I was working late, my phone buzzed again with a text message. "You look tired. Maybe you should take better care of yourself." I froze. Greg's harassment had escalated from calls to stalking. My breath quickened as I looked around the office, feeling eyes on me from every corner. I called Megan, my voice barely a whisper. "He's watching me, Megan. He knows where I am, what I'm doing." "Get out of there now," she urged. "I'll meet you at our place." I grabbed my things and hurried out, feeling paranoid at every turn. When I got to Megan's apartment, she was pacing, phone in hand. "I've contacted a friend who might be able to help," she said. "We're going to put an end to his games." The next day, I decided to change my number, hoping it would buy me some peace. But Greg's obsession knew no bounds. He somehow got hold of my new number and resumed his torment, each call more disturbing than the last. One evening, as I stared at my phone, drained and desperate, it rang again. I picked it up, determined to take control. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" "You don't get to dictate terms, Vanessa," Greg replied with a sinister chuckle. "This is far from over." I slammed the phone down, my frustration boiling over. Megan looked at me, her eyes filled with determination. "This ends now. I've found something," she said, holding up a folder. "Greg and Jessica are involved in shady business deals. This could be our leverage." My heart raced at the potential lifeline. "What do we do?" "We gather evidence. We expose them," Megan said firmly. "You're not alone in this." Together, we began our plan. It was time to turn the tables on Greg. Every day, we collected information, recorded calls, and documented his harassment. The weight of his actions pressed heavy on me, but Megan's unwavering support kept me focused. One evening, as I sat at my desk, Megan handed me a stack of documents. "This is it. This is the proof we need." I looked through the papers, a mix of relief and anger swelling inside me. We've got him. Greg had underestimated me, and now, with Megan's help, I would make sure he paid for every bit of torment he inflicted. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, I felt like victory was within reach. The harassment continued despite our efforts to gather evidence. Greg began sending anonymous calls at all hours, silent calls, heavy breathing, or menacing laughter that would seep into my dreams and turn them into nightmares. One night, my phone rang at 3 a.m. I answered, my exhaustion verging on despair. "You can't escape me, Vanessa," whispered a voice on the other end. I immediately hung up, my heart pounding in my chest. I sat on the edge of my bed, feeling the weight of the constant fear and stress. My work was suffering, and my health was beginning to deteriorate. I felt like I was reaching my breaking point. In the morning, Megan noticed the dark circles under my eyes and the weariness in my steps. "You're taking a leave from work," she said firmly. "You need to focus on what's important and take care of yourself." I can't just walk away from my job, Megan. I need something to hold on to, I argued, but she stood her ground. You won't be able to fight back if you break down completely. Let's take the time you need to regroup. Reluctantly, I agreed. I informed Linda, my boss, about my situation without going into too much detail. She was understanding and granted me the leave without hesitation. We'll manage here. You take care of yourself, Vanessa, Linda said, her kindness a small relief in the storm. With the weight of work off my shoulders, Megan and I doubled our efforts to collect damning evidence against Greg and Jessica. We recorded their calls and compiled documents detailing their business malpractices. One evening, as Megan and I pored over the gathered material, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Greg. Desperate enough to take a break? You'll need it. I showed the message to Megan, my hands trembling with a mix of fear and anger. He's pushing you, trying to break you, she said, her eyes hardened with determination. We have enough now. It's time to act. We prepared our evidence, determined to confront Greg and Jessica. My heart pounded with a mixture of dread and anticipation. We were stepping into the lion's den, but I wasn't going to let Greg control my life any longer. The next night, as Megan and I were going through our plan, I received another anonymous call. I answered, bracing myself. Heard you're taking a break. Good. More time to think about your worthless life, Greg taunted. His voice dripped with sadistic pleasure. How long do you think you can keep this up, Greg? I shot back, my fear giving way to anger. You can't hide what you've done. There was a pause, then a cold laugh. You think you can win against me? Keep dreaming. I hung up, turning to Megan. We need to shut him down for good. Megan nodded. We will. Tomorrow we meet with my contact. He can help us expose them. The following day we met Megan's friend, a tech expert who could help us compile and present our evidence in the most effective way. He scanned through our recordings and documents, his expression serious. This is solid. With this, you can not only expose them but also ensure they face the consequences. The plan was set. We were ready to take action and bring Greg and Jessica to justice. Despite the fear that lingered, I felt a newfound strength rising within me. I wasn't alone in this fight. Megan's unwavering support was my anchor. We had the truth on our side, and soon Greg and Jessica's malicious games would be brought to light. The fight was far from over, but finally we were taking control. Megan and I sat in her living room, our focus entirely on the laptop screen in front of us. She had just finished her call with the tech expert who would help us compile our evidence against Greg and Jessica. We're almost there, Megan said. Just a few more pieces, and we can bring them down. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. Let's get this done. Over the next few days, we worked tirelessly. Megan's friend had traced the calls, linked them to Greg, and organized all the documents detailing their shady business deals. The evidence was becoming irrefutable. One evening, Megan came back after a meetup with an old contact, her eyes wide with excitement. Vanessa, you won't believe what I found. She handed me a folder bursting with more documents. Greg and Jessica's entire scheme is in there. It's worse than we thought. I flipped through the pages. Fraud, embezzlement, bribery, enough to put them behind bars. One particular document caught my eye. Evidence that linked Greg's new tech company to fraudulent activity. Transactions, false accounts, all undeniable. Megan was pacing the room, energy radiating off her. We need to make sure this hits hard. It's got to be public, and it's got to be undeniable. I glanced at the invitations scattered on the coffee table. Greg and Jessica's upcoming engagement party. The perfect stage. We should do it at their engagement party, I suggested. They'll have everyone important there. Their friends, business partners, all witnesses. Megan grinned. That's risky, but it's perfect. The night of the party arrived. Megan and I got ready, our nerves on edge. You sure you're ready for this? She asked, securing a small camera in her purse. I nodded. We have to be. We arrived at the venue, an upscale hotel ballroom, the air thick with opulence and pretense. Greg and Jessica were at the center, basking in their own glory. As we moved through the crowd, Greg spotted me and smirked. Well, look who decided to show. Can't resist seeing my happiness, huh? Congratulations, I forced out, trying not to let my disgust show. Jessica joined his side, a smug smile on her face. Vanessa, how sweet of you to come. I thought you'd be too busy wallowing in your pity. I clenched my jaw but whispered to Megan, Is everything set? She nodded subtly and moved towards the stage. It was time. When most guests had settled down with their drinks in hand, Megan made her way to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice clear and steady, We have a special presentation to make. Greg and Jessica shared a confused look. Megan connected her phone to the projector, and the screen behind her lit up with images of the documents, the transactions, the fraud, everything. Greg and Jessica's achievements aren't what they seem, Megan continued. Here's the truth. Gasps filled the room as the evidence unfolded. The guests were stunned, jaws dropping, eyes wide with disbelief. Greg's face turned red with fury, and Jessica's eyes filled with panic. Greg stormed towards me. What the hell do you think you're doing? I stood my ground. Revealing the truth. You won't hurt anyone else. You think you've won? Jessica spat. You're nothing. We'll let the authorities decide that, Megan interjected. Your reign of terror ends here. The murmurs grew louder as people began to distance themselves from Greg and Jessica. Their business associates, friends, everyone who had been fooled by their veneer of success now saw their true colors. As we walked out of the ballroom, hearing the whispers and seeing the chaos behind us, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Greg and Jessica would finally face the consequences of their actions. Megan squeezed my hand. We did it. We did, I replied, a small smile forming. The battle was far from over, but we had won a crucial victory. The fallout from the engagement party was swift and brutal. News spread like wildfire. Greg and Jessica's spotless reputation was in tatters. Legal agencies began to investigate, and their business partners cut ties, leaving them isolated. One evening, Megan and I sat in her living room, watching the news coverage of the scandal. We really did it, she said, a sense of accomplishment in her voice. I nodded, yet couldn't shake off the lingering sense of foreboding. It's not over until they face real consequences. The next day, we focused on ensuring our evidence reached the right hands. Megan had connections in law enforcement, and we handed over everything we had collected. The authorities were swift to act, opening an official investigation. My phone vibrated, and I saw a text message from an unknown number. This isn't over, Vanessa, it read. Megan glanced over my shoulder. Let him threaten, he's losing his grip. At work, I received another message. We'll see who wins in the end. Linda approached me, concern on her face. Vanessa, are you all right? You seem on edge. I'm fine, I lied. Just dealing with personal stuff. She offered a sympathetic smile. If you need more time, just let me know. I appreciated her understanding but knew that staying occupied was my only defense against spiraling into fear. Megan and I continued to prepare, knowing Greg wouldn't back down without a fight. One evening, as we pored over files, the doorbell rang. Megan peered through the peephole, then whispered, It's him. Greg stood at the door, a menacing look in his eyes. Open up, Megan. I know you're in there. Megan held up her phone, dialing 911. Leave, Greg. The police are on their way. He pounded on the door. You think you can take everything from me? You're making a huge mistake. We're not the ones who made mistakes. Megan yelled back. You brought this on yourself. Sirens blared in the distance. Greg sneered. This isn't over, he said before turning on his heel and storming off. The police arrived moments later taking our statements. They assured us they'd keep an eye on Greg, but it did little to quell the anxiety gnawing at me. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation against Greg and Jessica gained momentum. Megan and I attended hearings, providing testimony and handing over evidence. Each appearance was nerve-wracking, but we stood firm. One afternoon, after another long session at court, Megan and I sat at a cafe, trying to unwind. It's happening, Vanessa. They're going to pay, she said, sipping her coffee. I know, I replied, though the tension still knotted in my stomach. I just want it to be over. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Another message from Greg. You'll regret this. I handed the phone to Megan, who frowned. He's desperate, losing control. We need to stay vigilant, I said. He won't go down quietly. Later that night, we received a call from the lead investigator. We've made arrests. Greg and Jessica are in custody. Your evidence was instrumental. Relief washed over me, mixed with a cautious sense of victory. Thank you, I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. Megan hugged me tightly. We did it, Vanessa. It's finally over. For the first time in months, I allowed myself a deep breath of relief. The nightmare was ending, and Greg and Jessica would face the consequences of their actions. There was still a long road ahead, but with Megan by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. We walked out onto the balcony, the city lights twinkling in the night. To new beginnings, Megan said, raising a glass. To new beginnings, I echoed, feeling hope for the first time in a long while. The news of Greg and Jessica's arrest sent ripples through their social circles and the business community. I was bombarded with messages from people expressing both shock and support. It was a whirlwind, but I knew the real confrontation wasn't over. Megan and I were busy preparing for Greg and Jessica's engagement party, to which we had received an unexpected invitation. We knew it was a setup for their propaganda, but we also saw it as the best opportunity to expose them in front of their most influential acquaintances. The night of the party arrived, and I felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Megan's hand on my shoulder was a calming presence. We had everything we needed on a USB drive, carefully hidden in Megan's purse. "Ready?" she asked, her eyes full of determination. "As I'll ever be," I replied, taking a deep breath. As we entered the grand ballroom, the opulence of the setting didn't faze me. All I could think about was the confrontation ahead. Greg and Jessica were mingling with their guests, the picture of a perfect, happy couple. I steeled myself for what was about to come. Greg spotted us and walked over, a sly smile on his face. "Vanessa, Megan, so glad you could make it." "Couldn't miss it," Megan said, her tone neutral but laced with hidden intent. Jessica joined Greg and looked at us with feigned sweetness. "Welcome. Enjoy the night." The tension was palpable as the evening progressed. Finally, the moment arrived. The crowd hushed as Greg and Jessica made their way to the front for their speeches. Megan and I edged closer to the stage, USB drive in hand. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our love and partnership," Greg began, his voice oozing smugness. "We've worked hard to build our life and careers, and we couldn't have done it without your support." As Jessica started speaking, Megan gave me a nod and moved towards the AV system. I followed her, my heart pounding. Megan discreetly inserted the USB drive into the computer connected to the projector. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have something special to share with you tonight," Megan announced, her voice cutting through Jessica's speech. The crowd turned their attention to us, confusion painting their faces. Greg's expression shifted from smugness to anger. "What is this?" he hissed. "Just a little truth," Megan replied, hitting play on the computer. The projector screen lit up with images and documents detailing Greg and Jessica's illegal activities. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the guests absorbed the information. The look of horror on Jessica's face was priceless. Greg lunged towards us, fury etched on his face. "You think you can do this to me? To us?" I stood my ground. "This is what you deserve, Greg. You've hurt too many people." "Everyone, this is nonsense," Jessica shouted, trying to regain control. "They're lying." But the damage was done. People were already on their phones, likely calling legal advisors and business associates. Greg and Jessica's empire was crumbling before their eyes. Security moved in to escort Greg and Jessica out of the building as the guests and media followed closely behind, snapping pictures and shouting questions. The pandemonium was a stark contrast to the controlled, smug atmosphere from earlier. Megan and I stood side by side, watching the chaos unfold. "We did it," she said, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "Yes, we did." As we walked out of the now chaotic venue, I felt a sense of closure. Greg and Jessica had finally met their downfall, and we were free from their shadow. Later that night, back at Megan's, we clinked glasses in victory. "To new beginnings," Megan toasted. "To truth and justice," I added. The nightmare was over, and a brighter future awaited. With Greg and Jessica arrested, a wave of relief washed over me. Their empire had crumbled, and for once I felt a sense of peace. But the aftermath wasn't without its challenges. In the following weeks, Megan and I attended court sessions determined to see this through to the end. One afternoon, after another exhausting day in court, Greg was let out in handcuffs, rage flickering in his eyes. He turned to me, his voice dripping with venom. "This isn't over, Vanessa. You'll regret this." I met his gaze, unwavering. "No, Greg, it's over for you. You've been playing with lives for too long." As the guards led him away, I felt Megan squeeze my hand in silent reassurance. She had been my rock through all of this, and we had grown closer than ever. Outside the courthouse, the media swarmed us, but Linda was there to support me. "You did good, Vanessa," she said, a warmth in her voice that I hadn't felt in a long time. "You're stronger than you know." I managed a tired smile. "Thanks, Linda. It hasn't been easy, but it's worth it." Returning to Megan's apartment, I felt the weight of the past few months begin to lift. We sat on the couch, a silence settling between us that was both comfortable and reflective. Megan broke the silence first. "You've come a long way, Vanessa. I'm proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, sincerity in my voice. "You've been my anchor." She grinned. "That's what friends are for." Speaking of which, I've been thinking, why don't we go on a trip? Get away from all this for a bit. A trip? I raised an eyebrow. Yeah, a fresh start. We deserve it, she said with a spark of excitement in her eyes. Maybe somewhere sunny? I laughed, the idea growing on me. I could use some sunshine. As plans for our trip began to take shape, I also started exploring new career opportunities. It felt like the right time to leave the past behind and pursue something that truly fulfilled me. Linda had been incredibly supportive, offering connections and advice. During a casual meeting at a local cafe, Linda and I discussed potential career moves. Have you thought about starting your own firm? She asked, sipping her coffee. The idea was daunting, but also exhilarating. It crossed my mind, but it feels like a big leap. You've shown incredible resilience and strength. You're more than capable. Her words stuck with me, and over the next few days, the idea grew in my mind. Megan continued to encourage me, helping me brainstorm and plan. One evening, as we were packing for our trip, Megan looked at me thoughtfully. You know, we've been through hell, but look at us now. We're stronger for it. I nodded, touched by her words. We are. And now, we get to start over. The trip was exactly what we needed. Sun, sand, and the luxury of time to reflect and heal. We spent days lounging by the beach, exploring new places and enjoying the simple pleasure of good company. Back home, I made the decision to start my own marketing firm, combining my expertise with a newfound passion for authenticity and helping others rebuild. Megan, ever supportive, offered to help with the legal aspects and logistics. Opening the office on that first day felt like stepping into a new chapter of my life. The past was a painful but necessary lesson, and now the future seemed bright and full of possibilities. Megan moved in with me temporarily, helping with the firm and providing moral support. Our bond deepened, and together we faced the world with renewed vigor. As we toasted to new beginnings in our new office, I realized that the darkness I had endured had shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace whatever came next. The story of Greg and Jessica was now a closed chapter, and I was ready to write my own story from here on out.